to the Art of Meaningful Connection, the podcast that transforms how you connect with others in our complex, interconnected world. I'm your host, Ling, and I'm excited to continue the journey through Dale Carnegie's timeless masterpiece, How to Win Friends and Influence People. In our previous episodes, we've discovered the power of withholding criticism and the transformative impact of sincere appreciation. Today, we're exploring what might be the most practical and immediately applicable principle in all of human relations: how to arouse in others an eager want for what you're proposing. Chapter 3 opens with a deceptively simple fishing analogy that contains profound wisdom about human motivation. Carnegie writes, "I often went fishing up in Maine during the summer. Personally, I'm very fond of strawberry and cream, but I have found that for some strange reason, fish prefer worms. So when I went fishing, I didn't think about what I wanted. I thought about what they wanted." This seemingly obvious insight reveals a fundamental truth that most of us violate every single day. We spend our time talking about what we want rather than what others want. Yet, the secret to influence, persuasion, and meaningful connection lies in understanding and appealing to others' desires, not your own. Over the next hour, we'll explore the psychology behind human motivation, examine historical examples of this principle in action, learn practical techniques for implementation, and discover how to avoid the common pitfalls that turn influence into manipulation. By the end of our time together, you'll understand how to ethically and effectively motivate others by aligning your request with their genuine desires. This is the art of meaningful connection. Let's begin with Carnegie's central metaphor. When you go fishing, you don't bait your hook with strawberries and cream just because that's what you enjoyed. You use worms because that's what fish want. As Carnegie puts it, why not use the same common sense when fishing for people? This analogy reveals a startling truth about human behavior. We are all fundamentally self-interested, not in a negative, selfish way, but in the basic psychological reality that we view the world through the lens of our own needs, desire, and concern. Carnegie quotes the brilliant psychologist Harry Overstreet. Action springs out of what we fundamentally desire, and the best piece of advice which can be given to would-be persuader, whether in business, in the home, in the school, in politics, is, first, arouse in the other person an eager want. He who can do this has the whole world with him. He who cannot walks a lonely way. Think about that title. He who can do this has the whole world with him. He who cannot walks a lonely way. This isn't just about getting what you want, it's about creating connections that are so mutually beneficial that others genuinely want to help you succeed. I experienced this principle powerfully a few years ago when trying to convince my teenager to focus more on her studies. My initial approach was to talk about what I wanted: good grades, college preparations, a successful future. The response was predictable: eye-rolling and resistance. Then I shifted to understanding what she wanted. Through genuine conversation, I discovered she was passionate about marine biology and dreamed of working to protect oceans ecosystems. Once I connected her current studies to her future ability to make a difference in marine conservation, everything changed. Her motivation became internal rather than external. She wasn't studying for me anymore. She was studying for her own compelling future. This illustrates Carnegie's profound insight. Every action we take is motivated by something we want. Even when we perform seemingly selfless acts, like donating to charity, we do so because we want the feeling of helping others, or we want to align with our values, or we want to make a positive difference in the world. The key insight is this: if you want to influence someone, you must first understand what they want, then show them how your proposal helps them get it. This isn't manipulation, it's enlightened communication that creates win-win outcome. As Carnegie notes, even Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate who rose from poverty to give away $365 million, understood this principle. Despite only 4 years of formal education, he learned early that the only way to influence people is to talk in terms of what the other persons want. This principle works because it's aligned with fundamental human psychology. When we feel that someone understands our desires and is genuinely trying to help us achieve them, we naturally want to cooperate. When we feel someone is focused only on their own agenda, we distinctively resist. Throughout history, the most effective leaders, negotiators, and communicators have intuitively understood this principle. Let's explore some compelling examples and dive deeper into the psychology that makes this approach so powerful. Lloyd George's political mastery. Lloyd George, Britain's Prime Minister during World War One, demonstrates this principle brilliantly. When asked on how he managed to stay in power after other wartime leaders like Wilson, Orlando, or Clemenceau have been forgotten, he replied that if his staying on top could be attributed to any one thing, it would be having learned that it was necessary to bait the hook to suit the fish. Think about the political context. World War One was devastating Britain. The public was war-weary, the economy was strained, and morale was low. Lesser leaders might have tried to convince people through patriotic speeches about duty and sacrifice, essentially telling people what the leaders want from them. Lloyd George took a different approach. He understood what the British people wanted: security, victory, and a better future for their children. He consistently framed his policies and communications in terms of how they could achieve these desires. Instead of talking about what the government needed from citizens, he talked about what his leadership could provide for them. Andrew Carnegie's nephew's letter. Carnegie shares a delightful personal example that perfectly illustrates this principle. His sister-in-law was worried about her two sons at Yale who never wrote home despite her frantic letters. Carnegie offered to bet $100 that he could get a response by return mail without even asking for one. How did he do it? He wrote a casual letter and mentioned in the postscript that he was sending each nephew $5, but forgot to enclose the money. The replies came by return mail, thanking dear Uncle Andrew for his kind note and asking about the missing money. This wasn't manipulation. It was understanding human psychology. The nephews didn't want to write dutiful letters to their mother, but they did want to maintain a relationship with their generous uncle. By giving them a compelling reason to write that served their interests, Carnegie achieved what guilt and pleading could not. The psychology of self-interest. Modern psychology has validated Carnegie's insight about human motivation. Maslow's hierarchy of needs shows that we are all driven by various desires, from basic survival needs to self-actualization. When we understand where someone is on this hierarchy and what they are currently motivated by, we can communicate in ways that resonate with their actual priority. Neuroscientist Dr. David Rock's research on the SCARF model, S. Status, C. Certainty, A. Autonomy, R. Relatedness, and F. Fairness, reveals that humans have fundamental social needs that drive behavior. When we craft our communication to address these needs, people are naturally more receptive. For example, if someone values autonomy, presenting a request as their choice and emphasizing the benefits to them will be more effective than making demands. If someone is driven by status, showing how cooperation will enhance their reputation will be more persuasive than appealing to duty. Historical examples of motivations alignment. Consider Abraham Lincoln's approach to the Emancipation Proclamation. He could have framed it purely as a moral imperative, which it was. But he understood that to gain support, he needed to appeal to what his audience wanted. To Northern industrialists, he emphasized on how ending slavery would provide more free labor and expand markets. To military leaders, he stressed how it could weaken the Confederate economy and potentially bring freed slaves to the Union cause. Similarly, Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal program wasn't just presented as government spending. They were framed as investment in what Americans wanted: jobs, security, and economic recovery. Roosevelt understood that people don't want government programs, they want solutions to their problems. The mirror neuron discovery. Recent neuroscience has revealed why this principle works so effectively. Mirror neurons in our brains fire both when we perform an action and when we observe others performing that action. When someone understands our desires and speaks to them, our brains literally mirror their thought process, creating a sense of connections and alignment. This is why people say things like, "You are speaking my language," or "You really get me." When someone articulates their wants effectively, there's a neurological basis for this feeling of connection. Cross-cultural application. This principle transcends cultural boundaries, though its expression varies. In high-context culture, like Japan, understanding what someone wants might require reading subtle cues and indirect communication. In low-context culture, like Germany, it might involve direct discussion of mutual benefits. In collectivist culture, appealing to group benefit and harmony might be more effective than individual advantages. In individualist culture, personal benefit and opportunities for autonomy might resonate more strongly. The key is that, regarding of cultural context, people are motivated by their own desire and concerns. The successful communicator learns to identify and speak to those motivations authentically. At the heart of arousing an ego want is the ability to see the world from another person's perspective. This isn't just empathy, it's strategic understanding that transforms how we communicate and connect. Carnegie emphasized Henry Ford's profound insight: if there is any one secret of success, it lies in the ability to get the other person's point of view and see things from that person's angle, as well as from your own. He liked this quote so much he repeated it twice in the chapter, calling it so simple, so obvious, that anyone ought to see the truth of it at a glance. Yet 90% of the people on this earth ignore it 90% of the time. The letter that reveals everything. Carnegie provides a devastating example of this principle in action through a poorly written business letter. The letter, from an advertising agency, tried to get radio stations to provide information. It's entirely focused on what the agency wants. Carnegie brilliantly annotates what the radio station manager is likely thinking while reading each paragraph. The agency writes, "The company desires to retain its positions in advertising agency leaderships in the radio field." Carnegie imagines the managers respond, "Who cares about what your company desires? I'm worried about my own problem. The bank is foreclosing and mortgage on my house. The bugs are destroying the hollyhocks. The stock market tumbled yesterday. This fictional internal monologue reveals a crucial truth. When we're focused entirely on our own agenda, we're essentially asking people to care about our problem while ignoring theirs. This creates resistance rather than cooperation. The letter transformation. Carnegie then shows how to rewrite the fried terminal letter to take it effective. Instead of beginning with the terminal's problems, the operations at our outbound rail receiving stations are handicapped. The revised version starts with appreciations and then focus on benefits to the customer. Your company has been one of our good customers for 14 years. Naturally, we are very grateful for your patronage and are eager to give you the speedy, efficient service you deserve. The key difference? The effective version talks about what the customer wants, speedy service and efficient handling, rather than what the terminal wants, fewer late deliveries. The job application success story. Barbara Anderson's bank job search perfectly illustrates this principle. Moving from New York to Phoenix for her son's health, she needed to find employment quickly. Instead of writing about what she wanted, a job, relocation assistance, understanding of her situation, she focused entirely on what banks wanted. Her letter opened, "My 10 years of bank experience should be of interest to a rapidly growing bank like yours." She continued by describing how she could contribute to your growth and profit, and help the bank meet its goal. 11 of 12 banks invite her for interviews. Why such success? Because she understood that banks don't want to hire someone who needs a job. They want to hire someone who can solve their problems and help them achieve objectives. The psychology of resistance. When we focus on what we want rather than what others want, we trigger psychological resistance. That happens because, number one, perceived manipulation. People sense when they are being used rather than understood. Number two, threat to autonomy. Being told what to do triggers our need for independence. Competing priorities. Everyone has their own pressing concern that seem more important than yours. Number four, lack of connection. Without understanding their perspective, we can't create a genuine rapport. Understanding this resistance helps explain why so many well-intentioned communications fail. We might have excellent ideas and legitimate needs, but if we present them in terms of what we want rather than what others want, we inadvertently create oppositions. The self-expression connections. Carnegie quotes William Winter, "Self-expression is the dominant necessity of human nature." This insight is crucial for understanding motivation. People don't just want to achieve external goals. They want to feel that their actions express their values, identity, and autonomy. This explains why letting people cook and stir ideas themselves is so effective. When someone feels they have contributed to developing a solution, they naturally feel more invested in its success. It becomes their idea, not something imposed upon them. Now let's explore how we apply this principle across different areas of life. The beauty of arousing an eager want is that it works equally well in parenting, sales, management, and personal relationships because it's based on universal human psychology. Parenting, the kindergarten, and eating stories. Carnegie shared two powerful parenting examples that demonstrate how understanding what children want transforms family dynamics. The kindergarten story. Stan Novak found his son, Tim, having a meltdown about starting kindergarten, kicking and screaming on the living room floor. Stan's normal response would have been to exercise parental authority. You have no choice. You're going. Instead, Stan asked himself, if I were Tim, why would I be excited about going to kindergarten? He and his wife created a list of fun activities, finger painting, singing songs, making new friends, then brought them to life at home. They started finger painting at the kitchen table as a family activity. Then Tim wanted to join. They said, "Oh no, you have to go to kindergarten first to learn how to finger paint." The next morning, Tim was waiting in the living room chair, ready to go to kindergarten early. The eating and bedwetting story. Carnegie shares how parents solved feeding and bedwetting issues by understanding what their children wanted. The underweight child who wouldn't eat was motivated by wanting to be strong enough to defend himself against the neighborhood bully. The child who wet the bed wanted to feel grown up with his own bed and pajamas like daddy. These examples show that children, like adults, are motivated by their own desire for autonomy, importance, and capability. When parents understand and appeal to this motivation, cooperation becomes natural rather than forced. Professional sales and business development. The insurance salesman story perfectly illustrates how this principle transforms sales effectiveness. Two agents from the same company approach the same prospects with the same product, but with dramatically different results. Carr's approach. Casual mentions of the new product, suggesting he would get back to them when he had more information. Result? No sales. John's approach. Enthusiastic presentation focused on benefits to the prospect. Being among the first to have this new coverage, getting ahead of the curve, receiving expert consultation from the home office. Result, not only initial sales, but doubled coverage later. The difference? John aroused an equal one by focusing on what the prospect wanted: exclusivity, competitive advantage, and expert guidance, rather than what he invented, a sale, rather than what he wanted, a sale. Management and team leaderships. The Shell Oil Territory Manager story demonstrates how this principle transformed teams' performance. Mike Wigton wanted to become the number one salesperson in his district, but one service station manager was holding him back. The station was poorly maintained and sales were declining. Traditional approach, exhortations, heart-to-heart talks, direct requests for improvement had failed. Finally, Mike invited the manager to visit the newest, most impressive Shell stations in the territory. The manager was so impressed by what he saw that he cleaned up his own stations and increased sales. Mike achieved his goal of becoming number one, and the manager achieved his goal of having a station he could be proud of. Digital age application. In our connected world, these principles become even more important. Social media has created an environment where everyone is broadcasting what they want: attention, validation, agreement, but few are listening to what others want. Content creation. Successful online creators understand this principle intuitively. Rather than creating content they want to make, they focus on what their audience wants to consume. This doesn't mean abandoning authenticity. It means finding the intersections between your expertise and your audience interest. Email communication. In an era of inbox overload, emails that focus on what the recipients want get response. Subject line like helping you meet your Q4 goals, outperform, I need your input on my project. Virtual meetings. Remote work has amplified the importance of this principle. Effective virtual leaders start meetings by addressing what participants want: clarity, efficiency, and relevance, rather than diving straight into their agenda. Personal relationships. Even in the closest relationships, this principle transforms connection. When asking a partner for support, framing it in terms of their values, like being a supported person, is more effective than focusing on your needs alone. When inviting friends to events, emphasizing what they will gain: connections, enjoyment, new experiences, create more eager participation than emphasizing why you want them there. Conflict resolution. Perhaps the most powerful application is in resolving conflict. When disagreements arise, most people double down on explaining what they want and why. This only deepens the divide. The alternative? Seek first to understand what the other person wants at a deeper level. Often, beneath surface demand lie fundamental human needs for respect, security, autonomy, or recognition. When you identify and address these underlying wants, seemingly intractable conflicts often resolve themselves as both parties recognize pathways to mutual satisfaction. Practical techniques for implementation. How do we put this principle into practice consistently? Here are specific techniques. Number 1. The want exploration question. Before important conversations, ask yourself, what does this person want in this situation? What are their goals, fears, and aspirations? Number 2. The motivation bridge. Identify how your request helps the other person achieve something they already want. This creates the crucial connection between their motivation and your proposal. Number 3. The benefit translations. Express your ideas in terms of specific benefits to the other person. This will save you time, is more compelling than this is more efficient. Number 4, the autonomy approach. Frame suggestions as choices rather than demands. Would approach A or approach B work better for you? Preserve the other person's sense of control. The perspective exercise. Regularly practice writing down situations from others' perspectives, their concern, priorities, and desires. This builds your perspective-taking muscle over time. These techniques aren't manipulative tactics. They are communication skills that create genuine win-win outcomes by aligning what you want with what others want. Now that we understand the core principle and its applications, let's explore more advanced techniques and potential pitfalls. Like any powerful tool, arousing an ego want can be used skillfully or clumsily, ethically or unethically. Advanced techniques. The why discovery process. To effectively arouse an ego want, you must understand not just what someone wants, but why they want it. This requires deeper questioning and careful listening. For example, a parent might discover their child wants to play video games not just for entertainment, but because it's where social connections with friends happen. This understanding opens up entirely new approaches to time management discussion. The key is asking thoughtful questions. What makes that important to you? How would that help you? What would that make possible for you? These questions reveal the deeper motivations that truly drive behavior. The mutual vision approach. Rather than simply appealing to existing wants, this advanced technique involves creating a shared vision of a desirable future. The most influential leaders don't just speak to current desire, they help people envision new possibilities they hadn't considered. They paint a picture of a future so compelling that it creates new wants aligned with their proposal. This isn't manipulation, it's inspiration. It's showing people new horizons of what's possible and inviting them to want something better than what they currently have. The objection anticipations method. This technique involves proactively addressing potential resistance by showing you understand someone's concern before they voice them. For example, you might be wondering how this will affect your department's autonomy, followed by an explanation of how their control will actually increase, demonstrate that you have thought deeply about what matters to them. This approach builds tremendous trust because it shows you've genuinely considered their perspective rather than just focusing on your own agenda. The empowerment framework. Instead of doing the work of persuasion yourself, this approach provides others with tools and information that lead them to persuade themselves. Rather than telling someone why they should do something, you might ask, What criteria would you use to evaluate this decision? Then provide this information that helps them apply those criteria and reach their own conclusion. This respects the other person's intelligence and autonomy while still influencing the outcome. Potential pitfalls and ethical considerations. Manipulation versus mutual benefit. The line between ethical influence and manipulation lies in intention and outcome. Are you trying to create a win-win, or are you only focused on your win? Ethical applications of this principle requires genuine concern for the other person's interests. When you help others get what they want, while also achieving your goals, you're practicing ethical influence. Manipulation, by contrast, involves creating artificial ones or using deceptions to make people think your proposal serves their interest when it actually harms them. The insincerity trap. People have remarkably accurate insincerity detectors. If you merely pretending to care about their wants while actually focused entirely on your own agenda, they will sense it. This is why this principle requires genuine curiosity and empathy. You must actually care about understanding what others want, not just go through the motions. The surface want problem. Sometimes people express wants that they don't actually serve their deeper interest. The ethical communicator distinguishes between surface wants and true needs. For example, a team member might want to skip important training because it seems boring, surface want, but their deeper want is for professional growth and success. Connecting the training to their career aspirations addresses the deeper want rather than just the surface preference. The cultural misalignment risk. What motivates people varies significantly across cultures. Appealing to individual achievement might work in some contexts, but backfire in more collectivist cultures where group harmony is valued more highly. Effective application of this principle requires cultural intelligence, understanding the unique values and motivations that drive behavior in different cultural contexts. The implementation challenges. Even when we understand this principle intellectually, several barriers make implementation difficult. Firstly, egocentric bias, our natural tendency to view situations from our own perspective. Secondly, empathy limits, difficulty accurately understanding others' wants, especially those unlike us. Thirdly, communications pressure, the stress of important conversations making us revert to self-focused patterns. Fourthly, short-term thinking, prioritizing immediate results over relationship building. Overcoming these challenges require consistent practice and a genuine commitment to understanding other perspectives. Case study: the hotel ballroom negotiations. Let me share one of Carnegie's most instructive examples of this principle in action. Carnegie needed to rent a hotel ballroom for a series of lectures, but the hotel suddenly tripled the rent after he had already printed and distributed tickets. Instead of arguing about what he wanted, the original price. Carnegie focused entirely on what the hotel manager wanted: maximum profit from the ballroom. He created a simple two-column analysis showing advantages and disadvantages to the hotel of the price increase. The advantages column had one item: ballroom free, for more profitable events. The disadvantages column showed that Carnegie would move his lectures elsewhere, eliminating revenue entirely, and the hotel would lose the valuable advertising of having cultured audience visiting regularly. By focusing exclusively on the hotel's interests rather than his own, Carnegie secured a much smaller increase, 50% instead of 300%, without ever mentioning what he wanted. This example shows the extraordinary power of truly seeing the situation from someone else's perspective and framing your communication accordingly. Let's explore a few more real-world examples that demonstrate the transformative power of arousing an eager want. These cases show how this principle creates breakthrough results while other approaches fail. The tricycle motivator. Carnegie shared the story of a father struggling with his underweight son who refused to eat properly. Traditional approaches: nagging, scolding, explaining what the parent wanted, has failed completely. Finally, the father asked himself, "What does my boy want?" He observed that his son was frequently bullied by a bigger child who would take his tricycle. What the boy wanted more than anything was to be big and strong enough to stand up to his bully. When the father explained that eating the right foods would help him grow strong enough to protect his tricycle, the boy's resistance vanished. He would have eaten spinach, salt mackerel, anything, to achieve his goal of standing up to the bully. This case illustrates the power of connecting what you want, healthy eating, to what the other person deeply wants: respect, strength, justice. The bedwetting solution. Another parenting example shows how this principle resolves seemingly intractable problems. A young boy had developed the habit of wetting his bed and would blame his grandmother when confronted. Traditional approaches: scolding, shaming, explaining parental desires, had all failed. So the parents asked themselves, how can we make this boy want to stop wetting his bed? They discovered two things he wanted: to wear pajamas like his father instead of a nightgown, and to have his own bed. When they helped him fulfill these desires, presenting him as a little gentleman who was shopping for his own bed, his pride and sense of ownership took over. "You are not going to wet this bed, are you?" asked his father. "Oh, no, no, I'm not going to wet this bed," the boy promised, and he kept that promise. By connecting bedtime hygiene to the boy's desire to feel grown up and important, the parent solved a problem that punishment and criticism couldn't touch. The breakfast cereal independence. A father struggled to get his 3-year-old daughter to eat breakfast cereal despite all the usual pleading and coaxing. The breakthrough came When the parents ask, how can we make her want to do it? They realize the little girl loved to imitate her mother and feel grown up. So they put her on a chair and let her make the breakfast cereal herself. When her father entered the kitchen, she proudly announced, "Oh, look, Daddy, I am making the cereal this morning." She ate 2 helpings without coaxing because she was interested in it. The act of making the cereal satisfied her desire for importance and self-expression. The Shell Oil Station Transformation. Mike Whidden, the Shell Oil Territory salesman, faced a problem with an older service station manager who refused to clean up his declining station despite repeated requests. Instead of continuing with unsuccessful direct appeals, Mike invited the manager to visit the newest, most impressive Shell stations in the territory. Seeing the modern, well-maintained facility aroused in the management a desire to have a station he could be proud of too. The result? He cleaned up his station without being asked, sales increased, and Mike achieved his goal of becoming the #1 salesperson in his district. The basketball recruitment failure. Carnegie shares a counter-example of a college graduate who failed to apply this principle. The young man wanted others to join him playing basketball and said, "I want you to come out and play basketball. I like to play basketball, but the last few times I've been to the gymnasium, there haven't been enough people to get up a game." His entire appeal focused on what he wanted, not what others might want. He never mentioned the benefit they would receive: more energy, better fitness, fun, social connection. Unsurprisingly, his recruitment efforts failed. This case study demonstrates a consistent pattern. When we focus on what others want and connect our request to their desire, resistance melts away and cooperation flourishes. When we focus primarily on our own wants, we encounter resistance and failure. As we bring our explorations of this transformative principle to a close, let's crystallize what we've learned and give you a concrete roadmap for implementation. The core principle recap. Aroused in the other person an ego want is fundamentally about shifting from self-focused communication to others-focused influence. As Carnegie's fishing analogy taught us, we must bait our hook with what others want, not what we enjoy. We've discovered that this principle works because it aligns with basic human psychology. Every action springs from what we fundamentally desire. When someone understands our wants and shows us how their proposal helps us achieve them, resistance melts away and cooperation flourishes naturally. Key insight we've explored. First, we learned that effective influence requires genuine perspective taking. Henry Ford's insights bear repeating: the ability to get the other person's point of view and see things from that person's angles as well as from your own is perhaps the most crucial skill in human relations. Second, we saw how this principle transforms every domain of life. Whether you're parenting a reluctant kindergartner, or managing a struggling team member, or negotiating a business deal, The same psychology applies. Understands what the other person wants, then show them how your proposal helps them get it. Third, we explore the ethical dimension. This isn't about manipulation. It's about creating genuine win-win outcomes where both parties achieve their goals. The key differences lies in your intentions and whether you genuinely care about the other person's interest. Fourth, we examined common pitfalls like focusing on surface wants rather than deeper needs, cultural misalignment, and the insincerity trap that occurs when we fake understanding rather than developing genuine empathy. Your 7-day action plan. Now, let's translate this insight into concrete steps you can take this week to master this principle. Day 1. The Observations Challenge. Today, simply observe how often you and others focus on what they want versus what others want. Notice in the meetings, conversations, emails, and even social media posts. Keep a mental tally. This awareness alone will begin shifting your communication patterns. Day 2. The Perspective Journal. Choose 3 important people in your life, perhaps a family member, colleague, and friend. Write down what you think each person wants most right now. Not just surface desire, but deeper motivation. What are their goals, fears, and aspirations? This exercise builds your perspective-taking muscle. Day 3. The Want Discovery Conversation. Have a genuine conversation with someone close to you where your only goal is to understand what they want. Ask questions like, what's most important to you right now? Or what would make the biggest difference in your day? Practice listening without immediately connecting it to your own agenda. Day 4. The Email Transformation. Before sending any important email or message, rewrite it from the recipient's perspective. Change "I need" to "this will help you" and "I want" to "you will benefit by." Notice how this changes both the tone and likely effectiveness for your communication. Day 5. The Conflict Resolution Practice. If you have an ongoing disagreement with someone, try this approach. Instead of explaining what you want and why, spend time understanding what they want at a deeper level. What underlying needs or concerns drive their position? Then look for solutions that address both sets of wants. Day 6. The Parenting and Management Applications. If you are a parent or manager, identify one area where you're getting resistance. Instead of explaining why the person should comply, ask yourself, how can I make them want to do this? What benefits, autonomy, or sense of importance could you provide that align with their motivations? Day 7. The Success Review. Reflect on your week. Which applications of this principle work best? Where did you slip back into self-focused communication? What patterns do you notice about what motivates the important people in your life? Use these insights to refine your approach. 3 advanced techniques to master. Number 1. The pre-frame technique. Before important conversations, spend 5 minutes considering the other person's current priority, concern, and desired outcomes. These mental preparations dramatically improve your ability to speak to their wants rather than your own. The benefits bridge. Practice connecting every request to a clear benefit for the other person. Don't just ask for what you want. Show them how giving you what you want helps them get what they want. This creates natural motivations rather than resistance. The choice architecture. Instead of making demands, offer choices that lead to your desired outcome while preserving the other person's sense of autonomy. Would you prefer to handle this project by yourself, or would you like me to bring in additional support? This technique respects their need for control while guiding them toward cooperation. Common mistakes to avoid. Mistake number 1. Assuming you know what someone wants without asking. Our assumptions are often wrong, especially with people different from us. When in doubt, ask directly. Mistake number 2. Focusing only on immediate wants instead of deeper motivations. Someone might say they want to skip a meeting, but their deeper want might be for respect for their time. Address the deeper want. Mistake number 2. Using this principle manipulatively rather than seeking genuine mutual benefit. People sense insincerity, and it destroys trust faster than honest self-focus. Mistake number 4. Giving up too quickly when your first attempt doesn't work. Understanding what someone wants often requires multiple conversations and careful observations. This principle isn't just about getting what you want. It's about creating a world where everyone feels understood, valued, and motivated to contribute their best. When we master the act of arousing an ego want, we don't just become more influential, we become more connected, more empathetic, and more successful in all our relationships. Next week, we'll explore how to make people feel important through the power of genuine interest in their life and concerns. Until then, practice seeing the world through others' eyes, and watch as doors that were once closed begin to open. This is the art of meaningful connection. Thank you for joining me on this journey toward deeper, more effective relationships. Now go out there and bait your hook with what others want. The results will amaze you.